Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome back. Again, I have my two co hosts, Max and Mitzi. I realized that they're not always helping me out with the reading. Sometimes they just like to sleep, and you can see that Mitzi found herself a little spot right behind Max, and he doesn't mind. They sleep together, and so this is very common for them. Today, we're going to be reading a book called Pete and Pickles by Berkeley Brothers. And what I really like about this book is that once we get into reading this book, there are two things I really enjoyed. The first thing is that the illustrator used different types of acrylics as a type of paint, acrylics and also watercolor for us to really enjoy the images. So that was one thing that I liked. And the other thing was that this is really a story that um, talks about a very hard topic, which is about death and about people passing away, but really about how we can go through life with going through adventures and still having a fun time. And so Pete and Pickles is really going to show us a little bit about that, okay? So here we go. Pete and Pickles. And you already get to start to see some of that color that's vibrant and bold and coming out to life. Pete was a perfectly predictable pig. He was also a perfectly practical pig and a perfectly uncomplicated pig. Being all of those perfect things, Pete might have run for the hills if he had known what was coming that night. So you see that there is Pete in his bed all alone. And then you'll see here, if we get closer, there's actually, it's like a tombstone that is celebrating the life of his wife. It says, "Dear wife, Paprika." And so this can be a sensitive topic for some of us, but knowing that through this story, we're going to see how he evolves as a person, or as a piggy, I should say. The storm arrived first. Pete cut the evening's fun off early and went to bed to get the nightmare out of the way. The same terrifying, watery nightmare all pigs dream during stormy nights. For pigs are known for doing only one thing well in water. Now, I want you to take a look at this page here. And, there are three different pictures in this one picture here, so frames of art. There you can see the pig sleeping. Now, I'm not sure if you've ever seen these images, but this is actually called the Great Wave. A Japanese artist named Hokusai. He is the one who created this image. And then there's this one here, right in the bottom. I'm not sure if you can see it, but we'll see it later in the book. This is called Nighthawks, and it's by Edward Hopper. And I actually had an opportunity to go see the picture, the actual real picture, at the School of Art in Chicago. So that's exactly where Miss Schlinger is from, and so I'm sure that she's also had a look at this image. Oh, so let me read this part again. For pigs are known for doing only one thing well in water. Drowning. And that is exactly what Pete dreamt he was doing when a sudden sound woke him. Now, this is the same image I was telling you about, The Great Wave by the Japanese artist. And so he's imagining himself drowning. And it's okay to talk about that sometimes we have nightmares. We don't know why we have nightmares, but we do. Every single person has a nightmare. I've had nightmares before. But what's important is that we know that it's just a dream. It's only in our head. And then the next day, we can talk to our parents about it if we're feeling scared. The window was open. Pete pulled the lamp switch. Nothing happened. He had an odd feeling. Pigs are very smart in this way. That something was a little wrong. So you'll see there that he's pulling on the lamp and nothing's happening. And then we have this. Do you notice something in the background? Pete was suddenly grabbed Hugged, really, by a wet nose at the other end of which was a wet elephant. The beast whispered, "Shh." She said nothing else, but her eyes spoke clearly. "Help me." Then a knock at the door. So I want you to take a look at her next to Pete. A clown asked Pete if he'd seen any sign of an escaped elephant named Pickles. "There, under the couch. Look carefully," Pete said. As the circus man led the sad, slumping elephant away, Pete was startled when she looked back at him and smiled. Huh. I'm wondering why Pickles would be smiling at Pete when he pretty much snitched on her and told the clown that she was there. The next morning, Pete was disinfecting his house when he noticed his midnight visitor had left behind a gift. Dandelions. Dandelions are a type of flower. Ridiculous, thought Pete as he scrubbed. And so you'll take a look there. You see the dandelions, where they're at? That afternoon, Pete took his usual short stroll. He looked down at the evening mist rolling in and saw a circus tent. He looked at the dandelion. Ridiculous, he muttered. Today, however, Pete would take a longer walk. I'm going to try to get as close as I can so that you can see the tent of the circus. Now I'm wondering if he's going to take a longer walk, where do you think he's going to go on his walk? He soon found himself amidst the circus tents, watching a long nose plucking every dandelion within reach. Pete knew that nose, and it knew him. It plucked Pete's hat and disappeared. Seconds before Pete called the police, his hat was pushed back out, improved. So there he is with Pickles. And then at the very bottom, right here next to my finger, you see his hat? What does it have? Those sweet dandelions. Pete looked in to see Pickles sitting in a very dark corner of a very dark tent, wearing a very locked chain. Pete suddenly, unexplainably, found himself reaching for the key. Now, if you were in Pete's shoes, what would you have done? Look at the elephant. And sometimes we know that when animals look that way or they express themselves that way, they're not very happy. So I wonder what made Pete change his mind to actually open or get the key to open up the chain. Now free and outside, Pickles dove to hide while a panicked Pete whispered, "Tea was on my schedule today. Not elephants." Being a practical pig, however, he knew they needed a disguise. Something, anything, Pete thought fast. It worked too well. A policeman suggested dinner. What was the disguise they used? Now I want you to pay close attention to this image here. Remember I was telling you about how the artist uses acrylic and watercolor here? Take a look at that. Look at how lifelike that looks. I wish you had the book in front of you so you could see the image. It looks just so bold and it pops out and it looks so lifelike. They reached Pete's house by nightfall. A weary Pickles retired after making herself comfortable in a pair of Pete's favorite pajamas. Understand this, you have not heard snoring until you have had an elephant nap on your couch. Pete was a perfectly unpleased pig. Tomorrow, he thought, the big girl leaves. And take a look at them there. And here you go. Now, why do you think Pete's face looks that way? And then look at Pickles' mouth. She has her mouth open as if she's snoring. Can you imagine that, hearing an elephant snore? I don't. Pete awoke the next day to find Pickles doing a little more Tai Chi, as if she were in China. which she certainly was not. So I want you to take a picture here, or look at this picture here. Pickles covered the area where he's remembering his wife, and he put dandelions all over it. On the other hand, Pete noted that his house guests had made a few changes to the grounds. This time, Pete did not say ridiculous. Yeah. Why do you think that Pete this time didn't think it was ridiculous that Pickles put dandelions? Later that morning, Pete experienced the goosebumpily joy of a back scrubbing with his newspaper and coffee. He also discovered the limits of his bathtub. Take a look at that. Who is helping him take a bath? And then at the bottom where my finger is, look at where the bathtub ended up. Pickles showed Pete a magazine article about high diving. She pointed to the both of them. Ridiculous, Pete said. Pigs and elephants sink like bricks. Pickles smiled. After lunch, they would swan dive off Niagara Falls. What? They are going to go to Niagara Falls and jump off and dive? Swan dive, I should say. And they did. Sort of. Oh, take a look at that. Now, this is one of the images that we saw at the beginning of the book. I just don't know the name of it, but this was also one of the pictures that he had up. And so, are they really in Niagara Falls? No, they're using their imagination. On Tuesday, they sledded down the Matterhorn in Switzerland. Sort of. Pete was learning that Pickles had lots of plans. This reminds me of the Matterhorn ride at Disneyland. And I love how books can give us, make us think about other things that we remember. On Sunday, they went to Tahiti for brunch. Pickles, as always, shared her tropical refreshment with the natives. And take a look there. And this is one of the, this is the actual image that I told you that I saw the Nighthawks at the School of Art in Chicago. After Paris, it was on to the lazy canals of Venice. Pete did not know any romantic Italian songs, which did not stop him from singing them. Pickles sniffed a fragrant Venetian lily and shared it with Pete in a manner nicely suited for elephants and pigs. Oh, wow. So now they're in Italy. They were in Tahiti. Well, Niagara Falls, Tahiti, Paris, and now Italy. It was when Pete returned home one evening and found ballet trials in Moscow, soaring paracels over Tuscany and house painters on his roof that his thoughts turned into his early life, a less complicated life, thought Pete. Take a look at that. Imagine coming home to that when you're so used to a simple, uncomplicated life. Soon after, Pete discovered Pickles getting into things she shouldn't have been in. He snapped. Now, I want you to pay close attention when I bring the image closer. This page. Take a look at what Pickles is wearing, but also take a look at this picture here. This is a picture of his wife, Pepka. Why do you think Pete was so upset about that? I'm a predictable, practical, uncomplicated pig. Or I was before, he yelled. As a shocked Pickles fell back into the bathtub, the last words she remembered hearing were the worst. It's time you probably left. Now, remember that at the beginning we talked about how when we lose someone, it's a very sensitive topic, and each person goes through that differently. And every way that you go through it is a-okay. It's the way you're going through it. So maybe, just maybe, Pete is not ready to face those feelings yet about his wife. And that's okay. And we have to be patient about that, right? Be sensitive, be respectful, and be patient with that. Something broke. A pipe gushed water in a spewing torrent. The house filled well. A panicky Pete screamed, "Pickles! The mop! Buckets! Sponges! Never mind!" Head up for high ground. Oh no. What do you think is going to happen with all that water flowing in the house? Pete worried that the high ground would run out, and as a matter of fact, oh wow, look at how high the water is now, even with buckets and mops and sponges. Whoa, look at this. It did. And when all of the snouts and all the snoots in the now flooded house were fully stretched to the furthest reach, only one had found the refuge of sweet air. Oh no, take a look at this. The house is completely flooded. There's only a little part here that is not flooded, but look, they even have the elephant Pickles down there. Wow, what a great image. Love this image here. And it's different from the way we normally read, right? And I have the book turned upside down. That would not help. Pete clung tightly to the last open window. He looked back down in the face of one far too heavy to join him and noticed, once again, as always, a smile. Wow. So even though Pickles is in a very tough situation, she's underwater, she's still smiling. I wonder if that can apply to us in our daily life, where maybe we're struggling with something, maybe something is difficult, but we keep a positive attitude about it. Take a look where she's at. Do you see her smiling? And that terrible moment, what occurred to Pete was not how his life had become so unpredictable, so unpractical, and so completely complicated with Pickles. No, what occurred to Pete was his life without her. So this whole time he had been complaining about having her around. He even snapped at her. And now he's in this moment where he could lose her. And he starts to think about what his life would be without her. What do you think he's thinking about now? That endless night would be the longest of all of their great journeys. And when the fireman finally climbed to the window the next morning, he could not believe what he found. So remember, they're in this house right here, and it's flooded. Take a look at what the fireman saw. What is Pete doing to Pickles? He found a very small pig breeding for a very large elephant. All night, every hour, every minute, every breath shared. When they finally emptied the house, the fireman looked down in puzzlement at the exhausted pair of sleeping friends. They tried but could not pull Pete from the mighty grasp of Pickles. The two slept all day, through the night, and on until morning. Wow. I am so amazed. Pete kept breathing in her nose, and that allowed for Pickles to get enough air so that she wouldn't drown. And he saved her. When they awoke to pick blueberries on the dandelion moons of Pluto, Pete sang Italian love songs. So there they go. On to their next adventure. That's a very lovely story. It talks about how we go through different situations so differently, but in the end, it's about, the memories we make now, the memories that we can still remember those people, but we also have to live in the moment and still enjoy our lives as well. Try the best that we can, at least. And so I want to thank you all again for taking part in another story with my two sleepy co-hosts. As always, we miss you all. We love you all so much, and we hope to see you all soon.